So now our goal with our customers is to make sure that the moment they go live, they have the, let's say, best-in-class solutions, including everything we integrate from a third party in terms of generative AI.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Auto Tech Show, our podcast that takes a deep look into the world of automotive innovation, technology, and solutions. My name's Mark Babin, your host as always. A big thank you to everyone for joining me today. It's an exciting episode. I'm going to be glad that you joined. Today we're looking how automotive companies are proactively using AI to help keep drivers safer on the roads. And it's not how you may expect. To help me dive more into this topic, I'm excited to welcome Vania La Rocca, the Director of Product Operations at Cerence. For those who may not have heard of them, Cerence is the world's leading provider of automotive assistance, creating intelligent, flexible, and intuitive in-car experiences for the world's leading automakers. And with more than 500 million vehicles fitted with Cerence solutions, chances are more than likely that you have already experienced their solutions in action in your own vehicles. And with that said, Vania, thank you so much for being with me on the show. I know AI is a subject that you have deep passion for, so I'm very much looking forward to getting your insights on the topic today. But first and foremost, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mark, for having us and for having me today. That's a huge honor. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it is something I know you have a lot of passion for. So I think your insights for a lot of these topics and how we're discussing today will be greatly appreciated. So on that, I want to jump straight in. Now, I mentioned in that introduction that your team has integrated into 500 vehicles. I know something that's just recently been achieved with some, if not most, of the world's leading brands, which is incredible. It's super cool. It puts you really on the front foot when it comes to utilizing proactive AI technology, especially with how fast this type of technology seems to be evolving these days. Now, when it comes to the data that vehicles are collecting, how does Cerence utilize proactive AI to then assist drivers in making those safer driving habits and behaviors?
So maybe let me start a bit, let's say, high level on what we do. So Cerence is mostly developing voice technology. So we develop, as you said, AI assistants for the automotive space. And so basically how we approach proactive AI is also in combination with how we can improve the experience in the car towards safety, convenience, via voice mainly. So as part of our voice assistant, we do have access to, let's say, different level of information from within the car, outside the car, and also, let's say, third-party APIs. So by having access to, for example, sensor data, we can leverage that information to proactively inform the user about certain things that he may want to do while driving. By accessing third-party data like weather data, we can inform the driver proactively and timely about, for example, extreme weather conditions that will occur at some point during the trip, or there may be other use cases like leveraging traffic data. We can proactively recommend, for example, timely detours or, for example, stops if we detect that the user is getting drowsy via, for example, the camera sensors in the car. So let's say we are really capable of integrating with as many content sources as they are available. So as I said, can be internal sensors, outside sensors, cameras from inside the cabin or outside the cabin, and leverage that then to proactively engage with the user via voice.
So this seems like the opportunities are really endless as long as there's some type of data capture somewhere. Your system just manipulates that to inform the driver.
So let's say our architecture is flexible. So it's designed in a way that we decide together with the OEM which is the type of data they're going to make available to us. We have also tools that the OEMs, so the automakers, can use to configure their proactive scenarios, as we call them. Basically, they can decide based on the type of data how they want to interact with the driver in the car. So we do provide, let's say, a set of predefined use cases, which are, let's say, basic use cases, like I was mentioning, the extreme weather alert. That's one example. But then the architecture is really flexible to leverage as many data sources and data points as the automaker wants to utilize. So it's endless possibilities.
Super interesting. Endless possibilities. When you have these conversations with the automotive companies and the OEMs, do they already have an idea of what they want it to do, or is there a conversation on, we think you could actually do this better?
I would say it's 50-50, probably. Okay. So some car makers, they do come with very clear ideas in mind and very, let's say, specific requirements. And for us, it's also, let's say, a learning opportunity in we can learn from them, how we can improve our products, how we can build better use cases, etc. Or they come more, let's say, using us as, let's say, consultants and experts in the field, and they're more, let's say, in a listening position, and they take whatever we recommend.
Super cool. So a big variety, I guess, on who you're speaking to or the stage they're in with their development.
Exactly. I mean, there are, let's say, OEMs where also their software teams are pretty huge already. And so they do come with a lot of experience, and basically it's more a partner to partner relationship. But there are cases where really either the OEM is very small or they're not yet, let's say, fully on board with the software defined vehicle, bus or train, let's say. And so it really depends a bit on company by company, let's say.
Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like it. Now, one of the solutions and features that I found super interesting, and I know your team recently shared, is your partnership with BMW, of course, a brand everyone in the world knows. And this is probably one of those teams with huge software teams and massive organizations. But it's the system that you developed, Cerence, or the Cerence Emergency Vehicle Detection, the EVD. I think reading about this, it's absolutely an incredible technical achievement, I think, in terms of where we are today and tangible advancement in technology.
Absolutely.
Can you share a little bit about this partnership and the solution, how it will be used by BMW? I think it's fascinating.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. It's probably one of our most fascinating solutions. So the emergency vehicle detection serves mostly, let's say, two major scenarios and use cases. So one is more towards convenience, as we call it. And that's when the driver is actually in an active position driving the car. And the second one, which is the most interesting one, is when the car is driving in semi-autonomous mode or in the future fully autonomous mode. And that's exactly where BMW is using EVD. So in the BMW case, so they are integrating our emergency vehicle detection in their 7 Series. So let's say they started with the 7 Series when L3 autonomous driving is enabled in the car. So basically, what is this for? So it enables to automatically detect sirens that are, let's say, surrounding the car, and then automatically recommend, in the case if the driver is present, recommend to pull over on certain side of the road, depending on the siren, where the siren is coming from. Or in the case of autonomous driving, is automatically, let's say, pulling the car over to, let's say, give way to the emergency vehicles. And that's super important because in many countries, and that's growing over time, there are regulations that mandate that you need to give way to emergency vehicles when they are approaching. But oftentimes, also when you're driving, you're not really sure where the siren is coming from, so it can get very confusing. And this is becoming a very strict requirement for L3, L4 autonomous driving systems. So that's where, let's say, the core of the partnership with BMW lies.
It's a really cool solution because you're right. I think a siren comes up and then you kind of panic. Where is it? Where do I go?
Exactly. And also in the, let's say, in the convenience scenario where you are driving, you will get a visual clue of where the siren is, so you can also react accordingly. So it's also going to improve the experience, let's say, in a safer direction also for the, let's say, regular use cases in the car.
Yeah, it's super cool. I loved reading about it because it really shows a combination of the automotive company seeing a gap and seeing they want to fit the car with certain sensors to detect things like this, but it takes a company like yours to really have the specialty
exactly.
knowledge on how to actually achieve that.
We leverage our, let's say, extensive experience in audio processing that comes from year working on speech to, let's say, expand a bit the reach also to different topics. And it's, let's say, we know that it's from internal surveys that we did, it's a very interesting feature for the end users. So what we know is that 2 out of 3 drivers would like to have this in their cars. They do see it's going to really, let's say, bring a tangible benefit for them. And now, with this announcement together with BMW, we want to, let's say, expand our penetration in the market with this specific product.
It's super cool, especially for those perhaps driving BMWs and 7 Series and have seen this feature before. I know some of our listeners will be in that position. So now you know where it comes from. I think it's super cool. And I think just like you mentioned, I think a lot of the other stuff that's going on in the car where you're engaging in and interacting with the vehicle, that comes from your technology in a lot of these brands.
Yeah, in a lot of them, yes.
Super cool. I'm going to play with some of the stuff in my car now and see what happens. This is super cool. I want to switch gears a little bit now. Having a safer vehicle and having safer roads in general, this comes from drivers themselves developing consistent safe habits. I think we know that. So having said that, let's talk about the proactive maintenance habits that AI can help bring vehicle owners and help them better understand their cars, what servicing is needed when, how to maybe drive in situations a little bit safer. This approach, how does this differ from traditional reactive approaches that vehicles and technology has had to be based on in the past?
So I believe everybody here listening to this, is perfectly aware that in the, let's say, past years, the software, the cars are becoming more and more complex. And that, let's say, brings the issue that the users themselves, they are not familiar. They may not know what is the full extent of the features that the car is offering. There will be components that were not there before. What do I need to do with those, and how often do I need to check the status of this versus that? So as I was mentioning at the beginning, by having access to let's say as much information as possible from within the car, we can use voice to proactively remind the user about maintenance due, or let's say specific issues that are occurring in the car. I don't know, for example, low tire pressure, and recommend, let's say, check stop for the car. But also we can, let's say, not only proactively, but also, let's say, support the user reactively, let's say, by allowing the user to query about functionalities in the car. So we have one product which we call Car Knowledge, so Cerence Car Knowledge, which is basically transforming the consumption of the owner's manual by making it available by voice. And also we do allow to interact with, let's say, what the user can see. So for example, you have a warning light which is popping up on your cockpit. You don't know what that is about. You can ask, hey, what does it mean? And the system will understand based on what's shown on the cockpit, which is the relevant section in the owner's manual that needs to present to the user. And then the user can, let's say, learn about that functionality and also understand, okay, is there something I need to do or not, etc. And so that also helps learning about the car better.
Do we feel like, you're trying to push the envelope on technology as much as possible. How often does the conversation about adaptability and people being ready for this type of technology, do you lean on the OEMs for this type of knowledge? Have you gained any yourself?
So Cerence is primarily a B2B company. We do, let's say, the majority of our conversations are with OEMs, so car makers directly, and tier ones. So let's say our, between quotes, contacts with the real user comes only from our UX research studies, but we don't get, let's say, the direct feedback from the field. That's the problem, I believe, with every B2B company. So let's say, the bulk of the feedback we get is coming from our customers. So that's how we adapt based on what they hear from their users and their buyers. we do have data analytics, so we can see how our system is being used in the field, and that helps to, let's say, adapt and understand, okay, what are the features that are, let's say, becoming popular, what are those that are less relevant, probably because we see a low take rate, etc. But more the feedback about, let's say, specific things that we should do, we get that from our customers, basically.
And then does that, what you hear from your customers, that is kind of what provides the challenge that you then have to find solutions for? And like you said, it's kind of a 50-50 relationship. You're kind of pulling and pushing with your customers and the OEM brands. Does that then push the technology to develop in certain directions? Do you see trends in that way?
Well, as in, I believe probably every industry, right now it's all about Gen AI.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's under everybody's eyes. So the field is evolving super quick. For us, it's, let's say, if we would have been talking 2 years ago, it would have been completely different from the conversation we can have today. And so right now, it's a lot about having continuous conversations with our customers, because the surroundings, they change so fast. That it's not anymore like before, where you could, let's say, engage with a customer, start a program, then the program would go in production in 4 years, and you could keep the scope of the project fixed as at the beginning. So now everything is evolving. Also within the time frame of a project, still automotive project, they do have quite a, let's say, long lifespan compared to other fields, even though it's reducing. But what's, let's say, new in the past, I would say probably 1-2 years, is that we managed to bring in a lot of innovations during the project instead of post production. So now our goal with our customers is to make sure that the moment they go live, they have the, let's say, best-in-class solutions, including everything we integrate from third party in terms of generative AI. You may have heard about the ChatGPT integration we launched with VW brands, etc. So we want to make sure that we get them in the position that the moment they go live, the user will get latest and greatest as much as possible, despite, say, the difficulties in automotive with the longer projects and longer lifespan.
Yeah, that's the thing I was going to ask about. These projects are not quick turnovers, because car development starts a long time ago for what we see today. And I think it's the same with technology. A lot of the stuff that we see being activated today in our vehicles is stuff that's been in development for a number of years. And I think that window is shrinking.
That window is shrinking, yes. Right? And also with, let's say, having more and more capabilities in the cloud rather than on the edge, it's also easier to, let's say, revamp the systems closer to production, because it's going to be cloud updates, not requiring any work on the embedded side. So that it's simplifying, and also what's making things easier for us, and also for the OEMs, and much better for the users in the end, is the over-the-air update capabilities. So the fact that even when the car is on the road, they can get meaningful updates over the lifetime of the car, that, let's say, makes the car stay fresh and competitive.
This type of technology blows my mind, because literally, no joke, I was driving my car yesterday and I had just purchased a new car, and it just, the screen suddenly said, do you want to download an update? And I'm like, download what update? Like, what are you talking about? How can I have to bring my car to somewhere to update? They put a stick in the thing, like that's how it updates. And then I just click accept and it starts downloading, like on the road. This is something that is incredible to see now, but surely the idea for it was a decade ago.
Even more probably, yes. Yes.
As soon as we saw it in our mobile phones, I suppose, and the car could then maintain a signal or maintain connection to a server of some kind. It's absolutely incredible. Are there limits to any of this? Like, we go back to the maintenance topic, for example. The car senses an issue, that sensor then creates a notification. Your system then notifies the driver of an issue. You're limited by the tech in the car. Do you then... Like, how do you balance that?
Not only by the technical, also there may be regulations that come into place. Where, for example, if we talk about over-the-air updates, not everything is possible via OTA, because there may be the need for, let's say, extra care by, let's say, professional dealerships. It depends also, I mean, on the let's say, on the size of the update, let's say. So how impactful it is for the system, which are the units that are going to be touched by the update. So not everything is applicable for over the air, but we will see more and more moving forward, moving in that direction. Also, right now, also cost is still a bit a problem in some cases. Sure. Because if it's a lot of data, it can be also gigabytes of data. In some cases, it can become an issue, and thus some OEMs prefer you do it at a dealership. But let's say with the evolution also on the telecom side, that will become less and less of a problem moving forward.
Yeah, it seems like things are kind of picking up and you're just there to capitalize on all the new innovations in the tech field, which is really exciting. And that kind of leads me into the next topic I want to discuss is obviously looking at the future. I know there's got to be lots of stuff that you're working on today that we won't see in cars for a number of years. And I don't want to ask about any of that because I know what the answer will be. So I'm going to avoid that. But what I would like to know is how you personally envision the role of this proactive AI technology enhancing driver safety. So what we see today, great, it's already revolutionary, but how do you personally see the development of that in the next years?
So we will certainly, we will see more and more. So we discussed about today using contextual data. So what's available in the car, what's available outside the car. We are today not so much focusing on user data, for example, in our case. So, but that's something we see that it's popping up more and more. It's already somewhat a trend in China, for example. So we know that China is becoming one of the innovation leader in the automotive field, being at, let's say, at the forefront for many innovations. And so for sure there will be more and more a shift towards a personalized experience. So leveraging, for example, information coming from past conversations, for example, or from driver habits. So I know that you like to drive more sporty. I can, let's say,
settings optimized.
Exactly. There are many things we can do, or we can also, it's not only related to safety, but we can customize the experience in a direction that it's more suitable for the user. So taking the example of you like more sporty driving situation, the navigation may recommend specific type of routes. So that can be more fun for the user. I mean, there's literally an endless list of opportunities that lies ahead of us.
So that personalized side is kind of the stuff that you're getting excited about seeing coming more and more. And I guess the automakers want to see as well.
Yes. They're very much interested. I mean, it's a very, let's say it's a super interesting topic, but it's also, let's say, a complex one, not only from a technological point of view, because then we have to deal with all the privacy regulations across the globe. So take GDPR, for Europe, regulations in China. So let's say we are also, it's not only what you can do technically, it's also what you're allowed to do, let's say, and how you can use such data in the future.
The regulation is an interesting side of it because we know what regulation change is coming, and automakers have advanced warning about certain regulations, whether it's something specific hardware on the vehicle or software that has to support something. That must drive a certain amount of the innovation that you have to then work towards as well. Yes.
I mean, it's part, let's say it's also part of the boundaries we need to deal with. So you may have heard about the recent EU AI Act. So that's one example of where regulations, they have a direct impact on what we do. And now we are in the process of basically reevaluating all our products and technologies to see, let's say, whether we need to, let's say, adjust or change course in certain things to be compliant with such regulations. So it's definitely, I mean, it's not only about technical capabilities, as I said, it's also a lot about being compliant with the, let's say, rules around the globe.
Taking a little step back as kind of a final point here and one to close on, when we look at the automotive industry as a whole, we see tech expanding exponentially and changing a lot of things and how a lot of this is done. How do you see the industry pushing forward with AI? Is it something that's forever going to be there and continue to evolve? Are we going to see limits on this? Is it going to be regulatory that creates those limits?
That's the $1 million question.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I've got my pen ready. I'm ready. But it's an interesting topic, right?
Yeah, because absolutely.
Everything is about AI these days. AI has been part of our lives for years, just it wasn't in front of our face as it is now. Everything innovation, cars included, seems to be including this in some capacity. Is that how you see the industry then like shifting?
So for sure, there's a growing interest, and also in the automotive right now. I mean, for us, it's all about AI and Gen AI all over the place. I mean, every single conversation is about how we can advance, how we can bring the experience from the consumer space in the car. So take the example of ChatGPT or Gemini, that type of conversational experience. Our customers are asking, okay, can we have something similar in the car? And the car is more and more seen as let's say, an extension of your digital life, let's say the regular digital life. And so we see more and more that OEMs, they want to, between quotes, replicate the experience you can have with your mobile phone within the car. But we see from the other side, take the example of the European Union, we see some attempts to, let's say, early attempts, let's say, because it's still early days, to regulate that in a direction that companies like ours should focus on, let's say, less potentially harmful applications. And so basically in some areas, it's going to become so difficult to certify your application, for example, to be sold in the European market, that in the end, probably many companies will simply say, okay, I will drop my idea or my desire to build that specific application because it's going to be too difficult from a legal standpoint.
Does that happen often? Because I think the problem with regulation is, yes, it can advance technology, but can also extinguish innovation. Is that something that you see happen? And I imagine it's a frustrating situation. You develop teams around a solution, and then suddenly the government comes in and says, no, you can't do that. Does that happen quite often?
So I believe it's going to happen more and more often as AI is becoming more pervasive also in the, let's say, in the regular consumer life. It's no more anything for techies or nerds, but it's becoming something for the, let's say, the man on the street, let's say. So I believe it's gonna get, let's say, more and more. It's gonna get more and more attention. The AI topic from regulatory instances around the globe. I mean, we already have China. Now we have EU. I mean, in EU, it's gonna be so. It starts now this August, but it will come effective, if I remember correctly, 1 year from now. So now we have like 1 year to assess and adapt. But we can expect that other, I don't know, US may do something similar, etc.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's something you have to be prepared for in every eventuality, but at the same time, you can't stop your pushing the boundaries of what technology can do. No, and also
we need to be agile. I mean, and let's say iterate and adapt as the changes come. It's not only regulations, also the world around us, right? With many innovations that pop up on a daily basis now.
Yeah, it's the innovations that seem to squeak through the cracks or the ones that are groundbreaking, right? So you have to push the envelope, not just stay conservative. And I imagine the automakers are thinking the same. So I
mean, absolutely. But it's also a mind shift. That it's, let's say, happening in the past few years, where also the automakers that were traditionally, let's say, more conservative and more on the, let's say, on the safe side, they need to be also way more agile in the let's say, how fast they adopt new technologies to stay up the curve.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I was talking to Hankook Tires the other day for a podcast, and they said the same thing. Like, we have to be culturally in that mindset. We have to be innovators as a company, not just producers. Otherwise, we're going to be left behind, and we're going to see companies jump us.
The competition with all these new brands, EV brands that are popping up. So let's say the traditional OEMs, they need to, let's say, evolve and change the course to stay competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, I've learned a lot firstly, but I wish you guys the best rest of the year.
Thank you, Mark.
I hope innovation doesn't extinguish the work you guys are doing. And I hope you have the opportunity to make more groundbreaking things like this project with BMW, which is just a super cool thing. I definitely implore those listening, go play with your cars a little bit more and see what it can do. And
let
send
us
a
know.
big thank you to Cerence. Yeah, send a big thank you. So Vania, thank you so much for today. I really appreciate your time. And for everyone watching and listening today on this episode, thank you very much for being with me. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about what's in our own vehicles and what the potential is when it comes to this type of technology. Definitely something to keep an eye on. And again, a big thank you to Vania and her team for all the work they do and for this talk today. If you have any questions about what you heard today, head down to the podcast notes in the comment section, leave us a note. There'll also be LinkedIn links for Vania and myself. If you want to get in touch personally, please do that as well. You never know, it could spark a future episode of the show. But with that, we'll leave everyone there. A new episode coming very soon, so you won't have to wait too long for that. But again, wishing you all a great day in the world wherever you may be. I'll see you on the next episode very soon.